Okay, let me know when you're ready.
No, it's, the speaker's not on. It kind of baffled me too.
Okay. It's okay. I want you to imagine that you're driving along the road. It's a really nice day. The sun is shining, it's perfectly peaceful. There's not a lot of traffic. It's just a moment, a very run-of-the-mill, nice, simple moment. And then out of nowhere, someone cuts you off. You have to slam on your brakes. It's jarring. Your heart rate goes to the roof. You check your surroundings. You make sure you don't hit someone else. You white knuckle the steering wheel. You correct. And adrenaline floods your system. How do you feel? Upset? Angry? Scared? Incensed? Panicked? All of those emotions make sense, right? I mean, what could they possibly be thinking? What could they possibly have been doing that was so important that they cut you off? There was almost no traffic around you. What was going on in that moment in time that they did that, right? So let's take another example. Let's say you're at work. It's a pretty good environment. You know, for the most part, everybody seems to get along. It's not bad when you go in every day. I mean, no one wants to go to work, who does, right? But it's not that bad. But you have this one coworker and they just don't really interact with anybody. They put their head down, they do their job. But like clockwork, every single week, there's at least twice that they just stroll in whenever they want to. Management doesn't say anything. There seems to be no consequences for their actions. And we've all seen that, right? The nepotism runs rampant. Some people get to do whatever they want, others don't. There doesn't seem to be any real consequences for that. So how does that make you feel? It's frustrating. It's annoying. It happens everywhere you go. It seems you kind of run into these situations. There's always someone who gets away with everything. But what if I told you that the driver of the car that cut you off was a teenager and she just got her license and she handed her friend a snack and there was an almost immediate allergic reaction and they were struggling to breathe. She's panicked. She doesn't know what she's doing. All she's trying to do is find out how to save her friend. Would you still be angry? Would you still be upset? Would you still be incensed? What if I told you that the coworker that you think gets all those benefits, the one that most people are going to talk about behind their back and really can't stand, that they're fighting every single day just to come in, just to keep going. And that the reason that they're late and the reason that they keep to themselves is because the days that they're late, they're taking their kid to chemo. Would you feel differently about your coworker then? Now, I'm not saying that these extremes are always going to be the case. But what I am saying is that it seems to be a knee-jerk reaction for us to make these negative assumptions. When we do something, right? If I'm on my way to work and I forget my laptop, well, I have a good reason. I'm not late. I'm going to be there, especially when I get there. I'm going to be the person that's on time. So why is there a reason for me? And why is this person on an automatic assumption become a villain? Why is it that if I accidentally drop something in my car and I swerve on the road and I cut someone off, I'm so apologetic. Oh my gosh, they must know. I mean, I never drive like that. I never do that. But on the reverse side, when we don't know what's going on, we automatically assume they have to be an idiot and they don't know how to drive. And this is why they should do driving tests more than once when you get them. Now, I'm not saying that we should embrace toxic positivity. I'm not saying that all of this is always going to be the case. But I want you to recognize the discomfort that you felt in that moment when you did agree. Because I saw people nodding, and it's okay, I would have too. I am mad when people cut me off. I am mad when I see someone and I just assume that they are getting away with whatever it is they want to get away with because manager's favorite. But sit in that uncomfortableness because it's in those moments where you're forced to see things from a different perspective and you can grow. So if we look at the 3-to-1 positivity ratio, it's a psychological concept, and it tells us that it's going to take roughly 3 positive interactions or emotions to offset the psychological weight of a single negative experience. So I want you to really think about that. You have a horrible day, you go home from work, whoever, for me, it's my cat. And you share, like, I can't believe Betsy had the audacity to sit in that meeting and say X, Y, and Z. I can't believe that I had to have a mediation agreement for 3 hours with 2 employees because one of them thought the other's hair color wasn't pretty. And we carry that negativity, right? I'm not looking in those moments when I'm talking to my cat and complaining to her about my day, about what was really going on with Betsy and why she had that moment saying something. I'm not looking in those moments of frustration at why these 2 coworkers really had an issue, because if you think about it, did it really have anything to do with her hair color? No. So as humans, this is instinctual. This is something that we have a bias towards because we had to use that to look at and evaluate threats to survive. Because if we didn't look at something like starvation and we didn't hold that negativity and we didn't hold that fear within us, we were not going to take it as seriously and we might have survived. Or hey, that's giant little saber-tooth kitty with giant claws and giant teeth, and I probably should not go over there and try to pet it like people like me would do because it's cute. However, if we continue in this common frame of mind that so many of us has, it leads to seeing the worst in the world and the people around us. It can take an extreme physical toll and manifest in physical pain, anxiety, things like heart conditions, and the list goes on. I'll give you a personal example from my life. I was at a job. I had to travel to Nashville, so even without traffic, that's an hour and a half from Tullahoma. But you're also looking at traffic, so when my shift started at 2, I left my house at 11 a.m. By the time I moved up into management, it was even worse. I could be called in at a moment's notice. I lived and breathed my job. I couldn't sleep. There were times I didn't get time to eat. I was responsible for anywhere from 160 people to 185 people at any given night in 12 different departments. My doctor said if you'd like to die of a heart attack or a stroke, you can continue to work there. And we've all heard this story, right? There's a woman, she's dedicated, she's at her job. Now, I wish I could remember where, I didn't have time to look that up, forgive me. And she goes into work, but she's always there, so no one thinks anything about it. And she's working on a Friday. And then somebody on Monday comes in to ask her for something because she's always there, and they find her dead at her desk. So we have to look at the reality of the situation here. Why are we doing that? Why are we tuning out? Is it because it's the easy thing to do? Is it because this is our negativity bias? Is this the kind of life that we want to live? These are all really concerns then because we're dealing with so much. We're inundated with all of these things. We're just falling back on, I'm going to make my assumption. I'm not going to look into this further. I'm going to see the micro and not the macro. But here's where most people are going to typically start to tune out. Most of you are definitely aware that there's negativity, has damaging impact on your health, on your outlook on life, on your balance with socialization. You start to complain more. You don't look forward to leaving the house. Some people become shut-ins. It becomes an anxiety disorder so strong that you can't leave. We know the whole spiel, right? And usually the next thing that someone's going to say when they're having this kind of conversation with people is that one of the best ways to combat something like this kind of negativity is to keep a gratitude journal. And they want you to list all of the things that you're grateful for. They want you to read it and reflect back on it. They want you to rewire your brain to see the good in the world. And honestly, if that works for you, if that is something that is great for your life, keep doing it. Keep seeing that. Be completely honest with yourself. But in so saying that, I'm going to be very honest with you. I would have been with a speaker who said all of that right up until the point where they told me to start keeping a gratitude journal. And if I hadn't completely started zoning out and started thinking about the lunch that I was going to get after the talk, I would have, maybe tried to sit down and write the journal. I would have maybe seen that it could be a useful tool, but that might have been something that lasted for a day or two, and I can't sit still. So it wouldn't have actually worked in totality for me. Now, there's a few reasons for that. I'm autistic, I have extreme ADHD. Sitting down to maintain something like that sounds like an absolute nightmare. It sounds like homework, and I have enough things to do in my life, and my little brain can just fly off with a squirrel and go on about my day. It wouldn't stick. It wouldn't impact me. So for folks like me, I need a motivation that actually makes sense. Because we all don't think the same, we all don't feel the same, we all don't move through the world the same way. So put a pin in that, and I'd like to talk to you about what's coming up next week. On July 4th, it will be 250 years since the implementation of this country. We're supposed to be celebrating and honoring all of the history and all of the time that came before us, how this came to be, who we are as a people, and we are supposed to be proud. Because what we are told, what we have had drummed into us, is that this is the land of the free, and this is the home of the brave. And I know that this is not going to be something that some people want me to say, but the land and the free and the home of the brave for who? For people like my chosen mother who was with her partner for almost 15 years, and when she passed was told it wasn't a real relationship because it was with another woman. The land and the free and the home of the brave for who? For people like the man that I call my brother, who has a wealth of health issues and can't work. And people say he doesn't deserve to eat or to have a home or to have health care over issues that he can't help. The land of the free and the home of the brave for who? For the people who are dragged off of work sites, thrown into what is essentially modern day concentration camps, people that we probably won't ever see again. Land of the free and the home of the brave for who? Women who are kidnapped out of parking lots, off reservations, sold into God only knows what, killed. Land of the free and the home of the brave for who? The child we send off to elementary school with a backpack with a metal plate in it, hoping that if some nut job comes in, that that plate will protect them and they won't be shot and killed. So land and free and the home of the brave for who? Because we live in dark times. We are inundated day in and day out with so much bad news, with so many atrocities that feel like they happen daily, where people can't go to a place of worship like what happened recently, where people were gunned down trying to protect the people who were just trying to have a community together. in an Islamic community center. Or kids just trying to go to school and sitting there screaming because a gunman came in and they didn't know who they were gonna see or if they were gonna live for tomorrow. And even if you take the atrocities out of it, even if you take the social and the progression out of it, and you just wanna look at the finances, it's literally getting to the point where I'm starting to wonder, since water is now a commodity in some states, when is it going to be that I get charged to take a fresh air? And when all of this is happening and all of the negativity is around us, being asked to sit down and write a journal about the things that I'm grateful for, to help settle minors, to rewire my system into thinking about seeing things that I am grateful for, is something that I don't think that I can do. Because I'm going to be completely blunt and completely honest. Why do I want to keep myself in better health? Why do I want to live longer in this absolute madness of a capitalistic hellscape that we currently find ourselves in? It's not realistic. So with the amount of the insanity that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, the hatred and the violence and the vitriol that we're forced to endure, a journal about our health isn't enough for most people, and it's not enough for me. So we don't do it. We stay tired. We keep making the assumptions that we have to continue to live in this. We feed the negativity. We keep our heads down, and it keeps getting worse. I mean, we're angry. We see the injustice. We feel the pain. We have empathy. We see the problems. We think that things are getting worse. But by doing nothing, we're doing exactly what they want us to do. If you keep people worn down and scared and exhausted, barely able to afford anything, and constantly overwhelmed, on the whole, they will stay quiet. They will be so lost and caught up in their own world and their own problems that they will begin to believe that there is genuinely nothing that they can do. This is something that we have seen time and time again throughout history. It's a psychological tactic and it works. It works. Until we say no. It works until we decide that seeing the whole picture and not assuming the worst of someone is no longer an option. It is now an imperative that we have to move through the world to be objective, to look at the macro of the situation and not the micro. We have to work through the tiredness, the exhaustion, the pain, the anger, the frustration, and see the people around us. I'm not telling you to look for sunshine and rainbows in everyone. We all know that it's dark and it's cold and it can be cruel, and that some people are inherently just selfish. But what I am telling you is that the only way we get through this mess is to stop catastrophizing. Don't give up hope. And if that is not something that you can do, then hold on to that anger and use it. If you're like me and you can't rewire your brain in gratitude right now, rewire it in the best way that makes sense to you. Find the motivation to keep going. Because let's be honest, look at where we are. For all intents and purposes, a group like this of like-minded progressives who have found their way to one another in the middle of a small town, out of the way place in a deeply conservative red state. We found each other. We aren't alone. And where there are some of us, there are bound to be more. We're seeing that. More people are coming. So what I'm going to ask you to do today Because I know all of this is overwhelming, and I know that this gets to all of us, and we wanna bury our head in the sand and not pay attention to it or look at it too closely. Is to stop for a second. When you make those assumptions, sit in that discomfort. Don't get bogged down in the negativity and keep your head in the sand. Remember that you don't know what these people are going through. You don't know what the person with a smile on their face, the person who keeps to themselves, has going on in their world. Remember that they want people to be angry and they want people to be divided. And remember that the assumption that you're making may not just hurt you. Remember that the assumption that you're making could be hurting an ally. And right now, we need all the allies we can get. Thank you.